What is currently being seen in the news about Syria is just the smoke from a much bigger fire. The Pentagon has just launched Operation Kako Strike, pure revenge. 70 Islamic State of Iraq and Syria targets wiped off the map after the death of 3 Americans in Palmyra on December 13th. But there's something you need to understand about reality. Islamic State of Iraq and Syria is the past. The Pentagon is using a hammer for a fly, while here in Israel, we're using a scalpel right at the heart of the beast. Today, I'm going to reveal to you what the world is ignoring, the truth behind the confessions that Israel has just made public. We're talking about Israeli operatives walking on Syrian soil in areas where no one was supposed to be able to enter. And a Hezbollah commander who confessed absolutely everything about a naval plan that was meant to strangle Israel. And if you think this is only a Middle Eastern thing, just wait, because the Taiwanese government secretly sent its foreign minister to Jerusalem. There is a common thread between the missiles in the Syrian desert, the Chinese ships, and of course what is currently concerning everyone with the missiles in Iran. Let's start in Syria. On December 13th, a patrol from the United States-led coalition was attacked in central Syria. Syria, an area that for years has served as the natural refuge for Islamic State of Iraq and Syria cells. The attack was carried out by an infiltrator linked to the Islamic State and resulted in the deaths of 3 American citizens. 2 soldiers from the United States Army National Guard and a civilian interpreter who was working with the coalition. That incident was the breaking point. 6 days later, that is 2 days ago, the Pentagon launched an unprecedented operation. It wasn't a symbolic response, it was a large-scale air operation designed to punish and dismantle, not to warn. During that operation, more than 100 precision-guided munitions were launched against around 70 different Islamic State of Iraq and Syria targets spread across a huge stretch of Syrian territory. From Homs through Palmyra to areas near Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa, F-15 fighters attained Bartok planes, the famous Thunderbolt II, Apache helicopters and HIMARS precision artillery systems took part. Here is a key detail that says a lot when the famous American A-10S appear. It's not to show presence, it's because there are hardened positions, I mean bunkers, vehicles and structures that need to be destroyed surgically in a forceful way. Now, many people are asking, did Israel participate directly in these attacks? Well, the short answer is no, at least not in the bombings, but the full answer is much more interesting. Israel was notified before the operation as part of the air deconfliction mechanism in Syria. That's a standard protocol. But at the same time, Israel was carrying out its own operations in southern Syria, especially in the Kuwait area, very close to the Israeli Golan Heights. While the United States was striking Islamic State of Iraq and Syria in the desert, the Israel Defense Forces carried out ground raids, set up temporary checkpoints, and detained operatives linked to pro-Iranian militias. 2 different fronts at the same time. A clear message: there are no empty spaces. And here's a very relevant fact. This American operation was carried out with the approval of the new Syrian government. After the fall of Bashar al-Assad in 2024, Damascus publicly supported the attacks, something unthinkable just 2 years ago. However, everyone is very distrustful of what Gulenino might be doing right now in Syria. For Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, it's still active but no longer operates in isolation, which clearly changes everything. It's clear it's making a comeback like a phoenix, but it's not the same as before. Meanwhile, and this is key, the tension in Israel is focused on another front, much more dangerous, at least in the long or short term. Well, that's exactly the point. It's about Iran. After the so-called 12-day war in June 2025, many thought that Iran had been severely weakened. The reality is a bit more complex. In recent weeks, various intelligence sources have begun to warn about the accelerated pace of reconstruction of the Iranian missile arsenal. This has even been mentioned in American media and some Western outlets. An impressive figure: 3,000 missiles per month, which is Iran's current missile production capacity. That figure, as it sounds, honestly isn't realistic. Here in Israel, what are people saying? Well, the intelligence reports that are shared are a bit more grounded. The more serious assessments indicate that Iran could be producing around 300 missiles per month, which is more measured, but honestly, it's still very alarming. For context, before June 2025 and the 12-day war, Iran produced 50 to 100 missiles monthly. So the jump to 300 is huge, but there's a technical detail that changes the whole analysis. During the June attacks, Israel and the United States destroyed critical facilities. Among them were the famous industrial mixers, essential for solid fuel missiles, which were part of the latest Iranian technology. That forced Iran to return in many cases to liquid-fueled missiles that they need. Listen carefully. Between 20 to 40 minutes of preparation before they can be launched. That obviously makes them much more vulnerable to preemptive attacks by the Israeli Air Force. While before, the other Israelis, the ones with missiles, could get ready in a matter of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, these take 40 minutes. In other words, Iran may be producing more missiles, but they are much slower, more visible, and of course, more vulnerable to Israeli attacks. Even so, the number is important, and that's why on December 29th, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet with Donald Trump in the United States. The Israeli message is clear. If Iran reaches a certain number of operational missiles, Israeli air defense could become overwhelmed. And that's a red line that Israel cannot allow Iran to cross. For many strategic and intelligence analysts here in Israel, it's not a question of if there will be a new confrontation between Israel and Iran, but how soon it could happen. In other words, it's not if it's possible, but when it will happen. And speaking of threats that aren't always visible, we have to go north now, specifically to the sea. And to a story that seems straight out of a movie, of course, just like we're used to. Months ago, not just now, the Israeli army captured a high-ranking naval commander of Hezbollah. That's news I also shared with you here on the channel. What's new, what's relevant, and is only now appearing in the Israeli media are the interrogations that have been made public. The operation took place in Batron, in northern Lebanon, about 140 kilometers from Israel, just a few months ago. This is an area that Hezbollah once considered completely safe, and that was exactly the breaking point that Israel was looking for. Commandos from Shahed 13, the Israeli elite naval unit, entered by sea with sophisticated electronic systems. They managed to jam both the United Nations radars and the radars there belonging to the Lebanese government. They disrupted surveillance, entered a civilian home, and captured the target without firing a shot. The person captured was Imad Hamas, senior commander of Hezbollah's naval wing. What Israel has just made public right now is part of what Hamas began to confess during various interrogations. This concerns the existence and operation of Hezbollah's Unit 7900, a secret unit dedicated to maritime warfare. What was its objective? To attack Israeli gas platforms, commercial ships, and naval units, all in a single wave in the same style as October 7th. Hamas revealed that Hezbollah was using civilian maritime study institutes as a cover, and that they were actually training with Iranian personnel using advanced anti-ship missiles, and that the project was directly supervised by Hassan Nasrallah and Fuad Shirk. This is not just information, it's a message. Israel not only goes wherever it wants, but also sees what Hezbollah tries to hide. And it's clear that these details that Israel has decided to make public are not intended to reveal confidential information. And I say this because many people write to me in the comments saying that I shouldn't be giving so much information and revealing so many things for them. According to the people who write on my channel, classified information, well, let me explain something to you. All the information I give on this channel is not classified information. I'm not disclosing secrets or confidential information. If that were the case, I would be in an Israeli prison and this channel wouldn't exist. The information I share with you probably seems revealing to many of you, but one of the many reasons is that in the West, little or nothing is said about these kinds of details. However, keep in mind that everything I share with you on this channel is because the Israeli government or army makes it public themselves. Precisely so that it can be spread. Why? Well, exactly because they want to expose it. They want the world to know what Israel is capable of doing, and not just the world, but also their own enemies. They want their enemies to see the reach of Israeli intelligence and think twice before attacking the interests of the Jewish state. Another reason is precisely to expose the vulnerabilities of the enemy, something like making them a laughingstock. So if you're one of those who think I'm revealing too many details on this channel, don't worry, I don't have ultra secret information. The information I share with you is information that's already here in the Israeli media. It's obviously very hard for people in the West and Latin America to access this information. Well, that being said, let's move to Asia, very close to Israel, specifically to another part of the world that's entering a critical phase. Taiwan. The scoop. Francois Wu, Taiwan's Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, made an ultra-secret visit to Israel this month. Why so secretive? Because China was furious. Beijing has issued its largest naval warning, surrounding the island with ships and planes, and they don't want anyone to help what they call separatist forces. But Taiwan has already decided. Have you seen how Israel's Iron Dome and arrow systems protect Israeli skies from the rain of enemy missiles? That's why they're here working on their own system, the T-Dome. And something important, in this context, the United States has just approved $11.1 billion in weapons. For them, it's the biggest check in history. For Taiwan, the military aid also includes 82 HIMARS systems, 420 ATOMS missiles, heavy artillery, and advanced drones. There's something clear about this. Taiwan doesn't just want weapons from the United States, it wants Israel's doctrine. They want to learn how such a small nation, surrounded by so many enemies, can not only survive but also capture commanders in the heart of enemy territory. The president of Taiwan, Lai Ching-te, made it clear. We need the spirit of David against Goliath, and the David of the 21st century is called Israel. Those were his words. An allegory that honors Israel's efforts to defend itself from the 14 Arab nations that surround it. Altogether, they add up to a territory roughly the size of North America, including the United States and Canada combined. However, that's not enough for them. They dream of and long for the small territory compared to what they have called Israel. It's not bigger than the state of New York. It's smaller than 47 out of the 50 states in the United States. Yet they still want it, driven by desire. It's clear that the Jewish people are not part of their plans when they chant from the river to the sea, something you may have heard at protests on social media and elsewhere. They are claiming the entire territory of Israel, not just a part, all of it. That's why, for the ambitions of Iran and its allies, a two-state solution is not a solution for them. The real solution for them is to eliminate the Jewish people. Thus, this small territory from the river to the sea would be their cherished victory. However, as the president of Taiwan recognizes, as long as Israel keeps the courage and cunning of David in its heart, the enemy's plans will be frustrated time and again. However, it's not really just about having the tenacious heart of David. In reality, what sustains Israel is its faith, which recognizes that the one who fought alongside David one day also today goes before us. Faith in the one who fights our battles, in the one who defends us from the fearsome Goliath. Don't leave without leaving your like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. See you in another video.